Hello. In my last video, I was moaning a little moan about how expensive drawer slides were. And everybody said, well, why do you need drawer slides? Why can't you just make drawers and put them on wooden runners? So I thought, how hard can that be? I've got loads of scraps of pallet wood and I've got these 2 bits of lofting board that I've just got lying around. So I thought, can I use scrap to build drawers? My plan is to not spend a penny. Don't know how it's going to go, but if it doesn't work, it's not cost me anything to find out that I'm useless. Let's go. So as I hope previous viewers will know by now, full disclosure with all of my projects, I share my mistakes, but I'm also going to really share and keep it simple with you guys. Because these drawers are going to sit on runners, the drawer bottoms, which I'm going to make out of this OSB, they don't need to be integrated into the sides of the drawers. They don't need to be routed in or anything like that, because the drawers are going to sit on runners and slide across. Trouble is, I've only got these for the bottoms, which are probably too thick, and all these scraps of pallet wood, they're all kind of different sizes and thicknesses. So I'm going to first cut down some of the material, run it through the thicknesser and see what we've got. If you want to try this at home and you haven't got a thicknesser, then just do it rough and you're going to have to do a bit of sanding, but it'll still work the same.
First things first, time to cut down that OSB or lofting board. This stuff is dirt cheap. It costs about 13 quid for a pack of 3 of these. In this project I'm only going to use 2. Now, this is not an optical illusion. The camera is level, but as you can see me struggling there, I can't quite lay this flat. This board is too wide because of a vise that's attached to my workbench. Now, I should take the vise off because it doesn't even work. But I got distracted with making drawer boxes.
So this is my thought for the bottoms. Yeah, they're really thick. Yes, ply would be better, but I've got these lying around, and if you want to replicate this project, these are way cheaper anyway. They are perfect for drawers that are going to be mounted on top of the runners. Like I said, if you've got side drawer mounts, then they're not going to work. But they basically slot together like that. And then I'm going to have to build some boxing out of some pallets to go around the outside to make them drawers and not trays. And then that's a drawer. I think it's as simple as that.
One day I might learn my lesson about saying, oh, it should be simple, because it never is, especially when you're working with scrap. But that's what I've got, and I'm tight. I'm using the track saw here to take off those lips, those ridges that interlock with each other. The other reason I'm going to do this is because at the minute the bases are too big. They are the right width for the drawer area if you like, but they are far too deep and they'll stick out about half a foot from my workbench.
So I'm sad to say that my pallet pickings are fairly slim at the minute. I need to get my hands on some more because these are the only lengths of pallet wood that I can find that are going to be long enough so that I can glue this all up in one go without having a load of joins here and there. Now this is going to vex a lot of people. They're all different sizes, different heights or widths if you like, different thicknesses. Some of that will get taken off in the thicknesser. Other than that, I may have to use the death trap, my table saw.
Just to give my thicknesser blades a bit of a rest, I decided to actually take these pallet lengths down to a rough length before I put them through the thicknesser. Now this isn't going to be exact, I'm leaving them a few mil too long on every side, but I'm just taking them down so there's less material to put through the thicknesser.
So all I've done there is on the miter saw I've chopped down the best looking boards, although they're still not perfect, to roughly the right lengths. Now I know that it's going to be rough because these are just about the perfect length. This is just about the perfect length if it's stood up. The ones I've left long are these ones. I don't need them to be this long, these are going to fit in between. But I've left these long because some of these are going to be different thicknesses. If I thickness them all down to the thinnest point, I'm just wasting my thicknesser blade. I'm trying to do this on the cheap. But I am going to thickness these a little bit because they're really rough. I need a smooth edge for the glue ups. I need drawers that I'm not going to get splinters on.
So that's exactly what I did, I just thicknessed them. Now the reason I am doing this is just to save a bit of sanding. Because we're not using any hardware, any drawer slides, we have got to make sure that the points of wood that contact each other are smooth as possible. So thicknessing just saves me some sanding. If you haven't got a thicknesser, you're just going to have to do more sanding. Fortunately, you can't see my face here, otherwise you'd see just how scared I was. This table saw is a death trap. I got it from Aldi, which is a supermarket in the UK, not somewhere you buy power tools, and it is not great. I did, however, manage to get a new riving knife for it from eBay, which makes it a little bit safer, but I'm still not fond of it. Now, it might appear that I'm not actually taking any material off the board, but I am just taking about 1 millimetre off, just that rough grain on the end. Again, this is just going to help to minimise the amount of sanding I need to do, because remember, any point of contact between two pieces of wood, it's going to cause friction, so the smoother I can get it to start with, the better.
That took a surprisingly little amount of time. If these drawer boxes actually work out, I'll be amazed, because I know building drawer boxes is a simple thing if you're using sheet material. I'm not. But anyway, these are cut to perfect length. So these are going to sit on top of there. Now remember, the runners are going to go under the drawer, so it doesn't matter that these are sitting on top. The runners will provide the upward strength. So they're going to sit on there. Now I left these purposely too long because I didn't know the thickness of these boards, but I've got to trim just a little bit off so that they sit in between there. And then after that, I'm just going to glue and nail it all together. Might as well get cracking. I've got a splinter though. Got an owie. Ow.
Let's just pretend that wasn't my new track saw storage that I just hit my foot on, because remember, I put it in a place where I definitely wouldn't kick it. Idiot. Rather than use a tape measure to take measurements, all I've done is I've got the two side parts of the drawer and I've laid them across, and then I've got my cut line. That tells me exactly what I need to remove without the need to take measurements. It's just a nice, easy way of doing it. Now, because there's no real skill or joinery involved here, this next part was really simple and took about 5 minutes per box. I've basically just got to put glue wherever one piece of wood touches another piece, and then I come back through with a brad nailer and kind of nail it all together. The nails will hold it in place without the need for clamps, and then once the glue's set, that should be plenty strong enough. The one thing I had to be careful was the boards being different widths. Because some of them are slightly wider than others, I basically assembled it on a flat surface, flipped it upside down, put the drawer bottom on top even though it's the bottom, some more brad nails, and that was it. I just had to repeat it with the other drawer.
And just like that, in well under an hour, I'm left with what seems like a fairly sturdy drawer box, and the glue hasn't set yet. What I'm going to do tomorrow, I'm going to let the glue dry, and then I think where I've nailed it on the side, I'm going to come back through, drill and put some dowels in. It seems a bit counterintuitive doing it after the fact, but I think it'll just add that little bit more strength because I don't feel like the nails and the glue are enough. But other than that, I'm going to build the next one, which takes 5 minutes. I've just checked the recording time. And then I've essentially got 2 drawers.
The next morning, after the glue had dried and I changed my mind, I came back. I didn't bother with dowels. The material isn't really thick enough that I think you'd get any benefit. Instead, I'm going to countersink some screws into each part. It might not be needed, but these drawers are going to be pulled and pushed constantly, so I think any time that you've got an opportunity to make something stronger in the workshop, you do it. I repeat the same process on the bottom of the drawers. Now, it's really important to mention here that these screws have got to be countersunk. A lot of the bottom of the drawer is going to be in contact constantly with the runners, so you almost want to over countersink them, make sure they are not sitting proud at all. Now, I considered cutting this next clip out, but you lot seem to enjoy my suffering more than my woodworking, so I left it in. Smooth. Anyway, any point where the wood is going to contact other wood, I'm just going over with 180 grit sandpaper. Not looking for it to be smooth as silk, but any kind of rough grain needs to be knocked down. The smoother it is, the easier these drawers are going to slide.
Okay, you've joined me in a tiny touch of chaos. I thought we were all ready to go, and I've taken the top off my work table, just so that it's a bit easier for you guys to see. I've got more light. Now, the drawers are going to come out this way, and the way I want the runners to be is I want them to sit on top. Now, that's a bit of an issue for me because all my sides are different heights. So all I'm going to have to do is cut out a groove there so that this part here, this back corner, sits flush with that. Yes, this would have been easy with sheet material. I like a challenge.
This only took a couple of seconds and it was an oversight on my part. I hadn't really figured out the mechanics of everything before I started assembling it, but no big deal.
I've got another bit of pallet wood I found. It's a slightly different width to this board, but I don't think that's going to matter too much. I'm not trying to make anything look pretty. Then for the runners, I found this. This was from our boiler that was taken out, and this sat above the boiler and you put towels on in the airing cupboard. Do you have airing cupboards in America? I don't know. I don't think we have them anymore. But this is going to be even better because this is already really smooth. And the smoother you can get the surfaces where the wood comes into contact with one another, the easier it's going to be to pull the drawers out. So now I'm just going to get everything cut to size, and then I'll bring you back when we're assembling everything, because the sizes will be different for whatever you're doing. If you are cheap like me and don't want to buy sheet material.
With all of my drawer runners cut to length, I'm then going and countersinking some holes in. Again, we want everything to be countersunk. We don't want any screws sitting proud. It's only going to catch our hands or catch the sides of the drawer boxes. I'm only putting 2 screws in each one. It's going into thick material, and these drawers aren't exactly going to hold weights or anything like that.
Do I regret taking my workbench off too soon? Yes. Yes, I do.
With the holes drilled, the next step was to give these a final sand. They're already fairly smooth, but I'm just going to take off any of the sharp corners and then I'm going to wax them. I'm using an old tin of bry wax that I might have left the lid off for a little while. And what's happened is all of the liquid has kind of dried up and I'm left with almost like a beeswax substitute. It's actually a block, which is perfect. There's no need to rub any of this stuff off. You just lather as much of it on as you can with any point where the wood's going to meet other wood. I've temporarily tacked the drawer faces onto my drawers so that I can see the exact height that the drawers are going to sit. Then I'm marking on my workbench the bottom of those drawers. This is going to give me a line where the top of the runner needs to meet. I've got the line at the front for reference for the front of the runner. The back of the runner, I'm going to find the right spot to screw it into just by using a level. Why I'm holding a pencil in my mouth, I've got no idea. I don't need it anymore. I'm like a dog with a stick. But I simply attach these runners, and there you've got the runners for the drawer to sit on. Now I do have a way to combat the drawers tipping out, which will be a problem you'll come across. Now the way is stupidly simple, and I'm ashamed that I've never thought of it before, but you basically get the under drawer, the second drawer down, you press it up against those drawer runners and mark on the side of the workbench. Then you put the other runners on, exactly the same as before. You don't want it to be too tight, you want it to be a bit of wriggle room.
In theory, the drawer box should slide between these two bits, which means it can't tip out, and then I just have to put another batten on the top to stop the top one tipping. Now I know this is like traditional joinery or carpentry, and I know this should be obvious, but I've never had any training. I learned everything from watching YouTube. I just think it's amazing that you could do stuff like this. Amazing. If it works. And yes, in case you can't see, the boards are different thicknesses. Am I bothered? Psh.
The last step is to put the drawer handles on. Now, I was going to go over to the router table and make some fancy routed drawer handle. And then I remembered a commenter said, "Keep it simple, stupid." I've got these old door handles hanging about from an IKEA thing that fell apart. I can't remember what it was. So I'm just going to use those.
I mean, they don't really fit, but they'll do. So there's my drawers done.
Now, I'm a member of a couple of woodworking forums and Facebook groups, and people who work with pallet wood get so much grief on them. Now, I think that there's a skill to working with scrap. This might look absolutely hideous to somebody else. Looks a bit hideous to me. But there's something to be said for only working with scrap materials, because you can't just make something. Half of it is making and half of it is problem solving because you haven't got the right bits and bobs that you need. But whilst this might look hideous, I can't tell you how pleased I am with these. Look, one finger, they slide so smoothly, it is unbelievable. And it's going to save me so much of the mess that surrounds me. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.